Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Chad here, CK Knife and Tool. Today's video, it's been in the works for quite a while. I've actually I made the video once. It took me about 3 or 4 takes, and then I stopped and I edited it. I did the editing and I was ready to upload it, and I came across the video on YouTube from another knife maker, and I had to remake the video again. And watching my other video and hearing what this individual had to say, I wanted to touch back on this again. And it's something that's been in the knife community quite a bit. Me being new in knife making, I didn't know too much about it at first, so I thought I would delve into it a little bit. Now, the caveat to part of this, as his title says, is what do you expect from your money? I'm going to be delving into the weeds a little bit about some stuff that a lot of knife makers have brought up in the past. But I'm not going to try to come across it as the knife maker as much as trying to do the video for you, the consumer. You're the purchaser of the knife. You know, it's one of those things, you know, it's a long discussion in the knife community between blacksmithing, stock removal, handmade, and custom. So I want to do this for the knife purchaser. Now, to kind of stay on track, because you know I guys can get babbling around a little bit, I actually have notes. I actually typed it all out and did it all because I wanted to sit and think about the whole thing. So I'm going to actually be referring back to some of this so I can stay on here. But ultimately, let's go and start off by saying you have $300 or $400 you want to spend. You got a knife, and you want a knife, and you're looking at something more of an heirloom, something you could pass on to your kids, your brother and your sister. You want something like that. So you're going to start shopping for a knife. Now, you're going to have 2 options. You're going to be able to just go to a place and just look online or do something, say, hey, I like that knife, that's cool. You're going to buy it and you're going to be happy. Or you're going to want to go and you're going to want to say, gosh, you know, I really wanted a really nice knife, but, you know, I want some input in it or something like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out by keeping all the big box stores and all the big manufacturers out of this. All your Cabela's and your Bass Pro and your Henkels and your Gerbers and all that, Charade, we're going to keep them out of the mix. This is your small to medium knife makers, the guys that are going to be able to provide you maybe a little bit more something for your knife, a little bit more of a nuance. Okay, so we're going to start out with that. Now, the first topic of this is going to be custom. Now, I do custom knives. Anybody that's familiar with my channel and my knives, anybody that's been to the shop, you know that I do custom knives. I cannot say I have ever really just made knives just to put them on my website and gone out. 90% of all the knives I've made so far, if not 99% of all the knives I've made so far, have been made to order. That means somebody came and contacted me and they picked out certain things that they wanted. 90% of everything I do here, everything I have, I give you the choice for. What kind of scales do you want for your knife? Do you want wood? Do you want micarta? Do you want G10? Do you want 2 pins? Do you want 4 pins? Do you want 6 pins? Do you want decorative pins? Do you want solid tubes? Do you want solid pins? Do you want those nice big decorative custom pins like the elk and the Eagle Globe and Anchor for the Marine Corps or the Special Forces crossed arrows? Do you want pins like that? Do you want liners? And if so, what colors? Do you want it hand sanded? Do you want it acid stone wash finish? Do you like my knives, but maybe you want that knife that you're looking at to be a little bit shorter or a little bit longer? And maybe you have a knife of your own that you've been kind of sketching out and drawing, and you'd like to see that thing come alive. Well, that's what I do. That's me. I am the custom knife maker. Okay, now let's go over to blacksmithing real quick. I'm not much of a I don't do blacksmithing, as everybody knows. I don't do that. I have a couple of friends that do blacksmithing, and I am not going to, by any stretch of imagination, I don't want you to think I'm going to take away any of your thunder. With blacksmithing, there's an old-fashioned nostalgia to it. It's a romance that's been rekindled throughout the years, that basically from television, TV shows that have done it. The hammering, the folding, the heating, the shaping, it's just that cool nuance. It's that romance to everything. It's a great process, especially when you're doing something like fancy swords and axes and long knives and hammerheads and things like that. It's a great thing. The blacksmith can take steels like ball bearings and your coil shocks or your springs or railroad spikes, and he can heat them and hammer them and shape them into something really beautiful. They can also turn around and take bar stock that you get from a factory A2 or S1 and D2 and 1085, 1095 and CPM 154, and they can heat and forge it, or heat it and fold it and hammer it and make it a shape and stuff like that. That's great. But one of the misconceptions is when people say, well, the blacksmith makes his steel. No, blacksmiths don't make the steel. Blacksmiths take everything that I just said and they shape it into their knife or into their sword or something like that. The only caveat with the making part of anything would be some blacksmiths have, throughout years of experience and hard work, have learned to take two different types of dissimilar metals like carbon steels and stainless steels, or just carbon steels, and fold them over and make Damascus patterns. Now they've not made the steel, but they've made the steel have a pattern to it. So they don't make steel, they make the pattern, they make the shapes, they make the designs. A lot of people say, oh, the blacksmiths make steel and you guys don't. No, we don't. They don't make steel. They make the pattern of a Damascus, or they shape it. The steel's already made in a foundry. It's through chemicals and heat. It's melted, it's forged or smelting, and they pour it out and extrude it. So that's it. So I'm going to clear that out right there. So again, I'm not taking anything from the blacksmiths, but that's their part. Stock removal, that's me. That's my little niche right here. Now with the stock removal guys, what we turn around and do is I'll take bar stock material that I get from a factory. Sometimes we'll get it from a blacksmith, but you get your bar stock and you grind it and shape it and you do everything else. Now what separates us most of the time is your knife maker, your stock removal guy, we use blade specific steels. We use steels that are specifically made at a factory for knives. We also follow a very specific heat treating process for each of those types of steels. When you're a blacksmith and you're using a railroad spike or a car spring, what kind of steel is that? How old is that steel? Where was that steel made? Is it made in America? Is it made someplace else in another country someplace? If it's a car spring made from someplace else, it's Chinese steel or something like that. So you have to look at that as a consumer. You have to look at that and say, what is it you're getting? What kind of steel you're going to get? What's the heat treat? What do you want out of that? Depends on what you want to buy. What kind of knife? Now the other thing is what most people don't want to put into connection is blacksmiths at some point in time become stock removal guys like me, because they hammer and shape that blade to a certain point, but then they end up, whether they take it to a grinder like I have or something similar, or they take files to it and everything else, they end up removing the stock, not by forcing it and hammering it, but by filing it, by grinding it and shaping it, making it to that creation that they're working for. So at one point the blacksmith does become the stock removal guy. Now so far I think you'd be pretty okay with spending $300 or $400 on a knife or something that me or one of those blacksmiths make. So you'd be good to say, hey, you guys, I'm going to buy a knife from one of you guys. Okay, awesome. So now we're going to get into this one part. So before though I touch into the handmade part of everything, we covered custom, blacksmith, stock removal. I want you guys to know about one other thing, and this came up in conversation with some customers that I had in the shop throughout the several months or the year as of late 2017, and that is people were asking me about different knives and what to do and how to do it. None of those people were aware that there's guys out there peddling themselves off as knife makers, and what they're doing is they're buying the pre-made knife blank, kind of like like a little blank like this, okay, any size. They're buying that knife blank, it's shaped, it's ground, it's heat treated, everything's done, and they're buying it off of eBay or some other magazine online or something like that. And they're buying 4, 5, 6, 8 blanks for 40 or 50 bucks. They're all done. They didn't do anything. They're buying it. It's already completed. Then they go and they buy some wood from Home Depot's or Lowe's, or maybe they'll buy a nicer wood from a catalog. They'll put some pins in it. And I've known these guys just to buy epoxies or glues from Home Depot's and Menards and Lowe's, like your Loctites and your Gorilla Glue. And they put it together, they grind it and shape it, and they sell it off as their own. They're now selling that knife as $200, $300, $400, and it's their knife. They made it. Did they make it? Is that something you'd want to spend your $300 or $400 on? So here we're going to go into, we're going to delve into the weeds now. This part here is a pretty touchy subject, and it's the handmade aspect of knife making. And this has separated both the blacksmiths community and the stock removal community in themselves when they talk about this. This is probably an argument that stands as long lasting as the argument of whose pistol caliber is better, 9mm or 45. So right now we're going to start out as what is handmade. Now, there are many guys out there, just as you know, that we do everything in the house. We buy our steel, we get it, we grind it, we shape it, we do everything we're going to do in-house. Very few things ever leave our shops or we have to buy from our shops. We buy our steel in stock form, we make the knife. We buy our pins, we buy some woods. Sometimes you buy it stabilized or not. As you guys know, I have a lot of wood here. I do a lot of stabilizing in-house. There's probably 5% of all the scale material I buy, I outsource. And then all of my pins I buy, all the decorative pins and everything else I buy. I have a couple places I get those from. So pretty much everything else in my shop is made by me, including my heat treat. Now, we'll go this way. We'll use this as an example as handmade as well. As there are guys out there both in the blacksmithing and in the stock removal communities that have implemented CNC machines. They take big machines and they take hunks of steel and they put it in there and they cut everything out. They make precise shapes. A great example would be is let's say Gary's a knife maker. And Gary buys steel and sends it off to Mark. Mark takes the big hunks of steel and puts them on a CNC machine and he cuts everything out and drills. Gets all those holes done. The machine's doing it all. When he's done, he takes it all, throws it in a box, and mails it off to Gary. Gary gets his knife blanks from Mark. He takes them out of the box and now he attaches those knife blanks to what's called a jig. A jig is a big metal mechanical thing that either by magnetic or by bolts holds the knife to a certain angle that's set by Gary. And he runs it across the table in front of his grinding belt and he just runs it back and forth until he reaches his grind lines, and then he rotates that blade and does the same thing over again. So after he's done with that, he takes them, throws them all in the box, and now he ships them off to Ben. Ben's his heat treat guy. Ben takes all of Gary's knives out of the box, he puts them all together, he does whatever he's supposed to do for his heat treat. He heat treats them. When he's done, he throws them in the box, mails them back to Gary. Gary now cleans them all up, puts them together, grinds them down, sells them, puts them on his website, takes a couple of pictures, sells his knife for $200 or $300. Is that handmade? You guys know that are watching my channel, or if you're new here, you can jump back and see some of the stuff I do and how I make my knives. My knives, from stock out of the box, all the way till it gets to you, the end user, that knife blank hasn't left my shop, and I freehand all of my stuff. I grind all the taper tangs, I grind the blade profiles, I do everything. I'm touching it. I freehand everything. I don't use jigs for that. So there's that aspect right there. Now, you're going to spend $300 on that. That's up to you. Now, another thing that came up, and this is something this is why I had to redo the video again, is recently I saw a YouTube video and I was watching this fella. And it was his video describing why he got a CNC machine. Now, he's been a knife maker for a better part of 15 years. And he used to make some really nice swords and stuff. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but I have seen some of his pictures and everything like that, a couple of them. They look nice. And so I'd have to say he seems like he does good work. Well, he started to get into a lot of high production. And so he implemented a CNC machine into his shop and he started doing this for high production. Now, I'm going to say, guys that want to do the high production, that's great. I know why they're doing it. They want to make more knives. They want to do it faster. They want to get them out. They want to sell them. They want to make that money. I'm not trying to steal their thunder or take away money from their families. This is for the consumer. I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from, and you'll have to decide who you want to make your knife and how you want it made. Well, getting back to this fellow on YouTube, he described basically what I do, and a lot of people, like my knife mentor of almost 40 years of knife making, okay, he described, and I'm going to quote this out as, he described making each knife by hand and not by CNC as dull, routine, crappy, low skill, and those dumb-ass kind of operations I'd rather have a machine do. Yeah. Now, this is a man that's got 15 years of experience thereabout. He's made some pretty good things, but it almost seemed like he was belittling everything that he had started on, and he's belittling the people that he prides himself to show their knives on his YouTube channel every now and then, or how he started, or guys like me. He's belittling it just to make himself feel better for deciding to make that, to get that CNC machine. I would have never done that. I don't care if you got a CNC. There's a guy on YouTube I've been following since I was probably one of his first few hundred subscribers. He didn't even have 1,000 subscribers when I found him on YouTube. He recently went from fixed blade knives to folders. Makes some awesome looking folders. They're the weirdest looking thing I've ever seen as a folding knife, but they're cool. And the detail that he's had is awesome. He's getting into CNC now. The truest in me, yeah, I don't like that kind of stuff. But I can see why he's doing it, because he wants to make more money, he's doing good work, and it takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of money to buy one of those machines and learn how to program it. So, again, I'm not stealing any thunder from any of these guys. But you guys have seen how I make it. I hand make everything. I hold that stuff. I grind it. I do all that kind of stuff. I've had 4 people since I've started making knives, and it's only been, coming up on 3 years. I've had 4 people come in my shop and try to repeat what I do. They couldn't do it. I've tried to give 4 people opportunities to do something. They could not do it. They just could not repeat what I do. They could not make the knife that they wanted to make because they didn't have the skill. Even after several attempts, they just couldn't do it. I don't give them jigs. I don't give them those handicaps. You have to learn like I learned, just freehanding it and doing it. But not everybody can do it. So, am I going to belittle that guy? No. That person just realizes it's a lot harder than it looks. So for a guy to turn around and say that it's mundane, dull, low skill, and all that other stuff, that was just wrong. So, you got to think about that kind of stuff. So, guys that are using those machines and everything, that's fine. They're making more money. They're trying to boost their production, but is it handmade anymore? I don't think it is. It's it could be custom maybe if they let you choose some things, but it's not. It's not that. So. So some ways to decide if your knife maker is going to be the knife maker you want to use is, number 1, do they have a website? Do they have a Facebook page, MeWe, Instagram? Do they have social media? Do they have a lot of photos? If they only provide you 1 or 2 pictures, and when you try to zoom into those pictures are really grainy and there's not a lot of good detail, that's one little flag you want to keep an eye on. Sometimes they hide their quality. One of the other things is do they have a YouTube channel? Can you see what they're doing and stuff like that? Another thing you want to do is, as a consumer, if you're looking for knives, try to find the guys that are in your area. How do they make knives? Can you stop by their shop and see what they make? Can you actually get your hands on one of the knives that you actually are interested in to feel it? Because one thing I'll tell you guys is I learned from my knife mentor was just because you draw it on paper or you see a picture of it doesn't mean it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it feels good. You actually have to have that you have to hold on to it. He used to tell me, Jeff would tell me this thing where it would be a form follows function, where it could look good, but it actually has to be able to be usable at the same time. And that holds true. And that's inspired me a lot to some of the knives I've made. That's why I don't get into big flashy knives or very gaudy, gimmicky things and stuff like that. The handles don't come off. There's not stuff hidden inside. There's not these weird shapes and grinds and deep serrations and fancy filing and all this kind of stuff. It's labor. It's intense. And if somebody's got $300 or $400, what are you going to do? I'd rather spend that money on giving them good quality steel, giving them what they want, like scales and wood and how the looks and the extra pins. Give them a good, nice feeling quality knife that's nice. Not something that is polished to 5,000 grit, you hang on the wall, and not something that looks like it's out of a sci-fi movie. I'm not that kind of person. So that's what you want to do. You want to find the knife maker that not only fits your personality or fits your niche or your need, tactical, bushcraft, hunting, survival, zombie apocalypse, whatever it is, you got to find that guy. Find out if they have a website, see what they can do, see if you can get your hands on that. Contact them. What will you spend your money on? That's what's important. So hopefully I kept this as short as I could. I wanted to explain. There was so much information to get in there, but I want to again thank you everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. Jump over to patreon.com/CK Knife and Tool to find out ways you can support my channel. My YouTube channel, my knife building, my shenanigans. Jump over to CK Knife and Tool to look at all the new updates when new knives are coming out, new production lines and things like that. Again, all handmade, all custom, here in the Pacific Northwest by yours truly. Till the next one, guys, you take it easy. Have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye. And darling, I'll get